year 97, I was benched for about a month. And at that point, as a low point in my career, it actually turned into, a big turning point where once I was benched and I got an argument with the hitting coach who was trying to force me to pull the ball in the batting cage. And he banned me from the cage because I used to try to sneak in there without him. He caught me. And so at that point I was on my own. So I just grabbed the batting tee and used to hit into the net. And at first it was, very much kind of a ego-ish, angry type,
Wrong
exercise.
Energy, right?
Exactly. Like a young 22-year-old, or 24-year-old at the time, frustration. And then over time, I had started studying meditation, qigong, in the off season leading up to the 97 season. And I said, I'm going to try to implement some of these into this active meditation of hitting and off a tee and take a breath and tie it to the movements of my swing and concentrate on how I put the ball on the tee and really feel my body. And I started to get into that. And that was really where my career took off. I finally got back in the lineup after about a month off, and my first game was against the Braves. So Greg Maddux was pitching. Most people know him. And I had 3 hits, including 2 home runs that game after basically not playing for a month.
Wow.
And I just basically the rest of the season took off, and that was a big turning point.
Tell me about the lesson there, that playbook of what that meant to you, through meditation, through what you were learning, like how far in your own way is, because I think that's a major lesson for life and for business that most people don't understand. If they can understand you're your biggest enemy, how everything opens up and how simple it is.
To break everything apart and say, I'm gonna rebuild. For me, it was my swing and my approach and my focus and mentality with the meditation. Is I'm gonna break everything apart and start over from scratch. And I had this month on the bench, and that was the time I said I could just sit here and pout, or I could try to make changes. And that's what I did. And I think it was the best thing. It's the best thing that happened. I think if I would have been in an organization where I would have been playing every day and had a great situation, I don't think I would have had as good a career as I did.
It's interesting you say that, because I always, my business partner is Warren Moon, and he credits the fact that they sent him to Canada. And I always credit my bankruptcy as being the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to go back and take stock in who I was and who I wanted to become, led me to meditation, led me to all these things. But Warren always says that, Dave, if I was drafted in the first round like I should have been, and I was a second string quarterback, because back then you didn't start as early as a young quarterback, but I was making millions of dollars, I'm not sure I would have thrown 10,000 passes a year, and really had a chip on my shoulder like Tom Brady every single game, which is, I think, ironic because, Warren never showed the chip on his shoulder. He wasn't verbal, just like Tom.
Right.
Tom earlier on, probably more than Warren, but, he had to stay humble because he was an African-American quarterback. But he says because they did that to him, didn't let him in the league, that he practiced so hard in Edmonton that it made him this great quarterback. And I just saw they posted up, the only quarterbacks ever over 40 to throw 3 touchdowns and 400 yards in a game is Warren Moon and Tom Brady. That wouldn't happen but for being benched or being sat for 6 years in Edmonton, or for me going bankrupt. And I think that lesson is that we have to enjoy the pursuit of our potential. And if we can truly be above the game like you are and say, you know what, I should really look at this a different way. You've heard change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Right.
And that's what you did.